I'm going to talk about how to use a saturometer here with this video. I'm going to introduce the Sweeney saturometer. This has a few different options for measuring change in pressure, total gas saturation. It also shows the barometric pressure as well as the temperature. So to deploy the unit, we're going to use the part that goes in the water. Now this part has fine tubing that's wound around a core that's inside there, and that fine tubing is where the gas that's in the water will equilibrate with the gas that's in the tubing, and that's how we get our reading. And that'll be compared against the barometric pressure that's measured with the box that you just saw. So we'll go ahead and put this into the water. That little cable that's attached to this. Now when deploying this, you want to make sure that there's no gas bubbles that are attached to the tubing, because that will interfere with the reading. So we'll dip this up and down a few times just to make sure that all the gas bubbles that might be attached to the tubing are bubbled off. Then it's just a matter of letting the saturometer sit for a while. It takes about 10 minutes to equilibrate. So we'll come back in a few minutes and see what kind of readings we have. Okay, now that we've got our readings from our saturometer, we're going to use a gas supersaturation calculator that is available from the American Fisheries Society Fish Culture section. And this was compiled by John Colt and added there. So what we're going to do is add the data that we collected from the saturometer, in this case the change in pressure. This is millimeters of mercury, direct reading from the machine. We also need to measure dissolved oxygen, which is a separate measurement that's not measured with a saturometer, so that's a separate reading. That gets entered here. And the temperature is also recorded from the saturometer. Now for the barometric pressure, we can estimate that based on elevation, so you can enter that as elevation, or you can enter that as directly as barometric pressure. So once you have those inputs, then you get these outputs that are over here. We have the computed barometric pressure based on elevation. We also have Bunsen coefficients that are based on the temperature, and these are calculations that are done by the calculator here. The vapor pressure of water, that's also a calculation based on the temperature. Total gas pressure is calculated, so you get an idea of what percent of saturation this is. And then it also splits out the gases. The gases are nitrogen, oxygen. There's also carbon dioxide and argon that are part of air as well. Typically argon is less than 1%, so it gets included with the nitrogen. Carbon dioxide usually is negligible, but might vary depending on your source of water. So in this case, your oxygen would be your percent here, and then this value basically includes carbon dioxide, argon, and nitrogen. So that would be all inclusive there, but generally negligible for typical well water. And so you get your readings here. And you get your output, and also calculates your nitrogen oxygen ratios. So very useful calculator, and I hope it'll be useful for you. All right, as the display shows on the saturometer, we're getting a negative reading for the change in pressure, even though it's underwater. So we know that something is amiss, because we should be getting at least 0 or higher because of the hydrostatic pressure on this elastic tubing and the machine. So we have an issue we need to troubleshoot, and according to the manufacturer, one of the recommendations is to use club soda to determine if the this elastic tubing that's within there is compromised in some way. So that's the test we're going to run right now. So we got this in well water, and we're going to pull this out, and then we're going to pour club soda over it to see how it's going to respond to that. And it looks like we're not seeing an increase in the percent saturation there, so it probably indicates that there's a problem with the tubing, so we'll need to replace that and get that fixed.